What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Dungeon Talks, the weekly show where you get to Q&A your favorite cast members from Dungeon Nytes. What's up? How are you going tonight? We have Istiria and Leif, also known as Gage Wakami and Cospain. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good. This is our, we're your guinea pigs, I see.
You are my guinea pigs. I am so pleased that you are my guinea pigs. It makes me so happy.
I'm glad.
No, I think it's going to be fun. So this is a new thing. This is the first episode of this weekly show. Essentially, we want to be looking at some of the elements from the previous session, as well as allow you, the community, the chance to interact with us. So if you have questions, you can post them on Twitter, just at us with hashtag AskDN, or you can add questions in a special channel in Discord, or you can post them in live chat and we'll try and scoop them up and throw them in there for you. Either way, we're here to interact with you and have fun. So, let's get down to brass tacks. Okay? So first question, I'm actually going to take an audience question. And I have to pull up my little thingy here. So from Ben, what got y'all into D&D?
Like to start with anyone particular?
No, anyone. Take it.
Okay. So what got me into D&D?
Yeah.
Honestly, I've always really liked kind of fantasy and sci-fi ever since I was really young. Like reading Lord of the Rings, Inheritance series, things
Ooh,
like that.
it's a good series.
But when I got about 2015, I was invited to play Pathfinder. I played one session. I made a Slayer, a Changeling Slayer,
Okay.
and I rolled almost nothing but ones, twos, and threes.
Oh no.
I was the Slayer, did 4 damage. It was awful. The RP character did more than me and killed the boss. I was useless the entire time. Didn't play again until 2017, 2018. Very poor experience with the session. A lot of railroading. Didn't really get to do a lot of. It wasn't very enjoyable.
Aw.
Kind of forgot about it until this year, or well, I guess end of last year. And I was just like, I'm interested in D&D. Around that time, I've been watching a lot of D&D videos, and I'm like, right, if you do something, let me know. And now we're here. But that's kind of how I got into D&D, and I think from now on, it's gonna be a real lot heavier part of my life, which is probably what I've been wanting for the last 5 years.
Nice. Cause, what about you?
For me, I've always enjoyed writing ever since I was a kid. Like big into writing character stories, world building. I played D&D with my uncle when I was little because he had the big red book, and that's where I first started to get interested in it. But it was more like the fantasy world, making a new character, making a story to go along with the character that got me into D&D.
I guess since I'm part of this crew, I have to answer that too. So I've always really liked storytelling, and I've always liked kind of having fun with voices and characters and those different types of things. And I've actually done a bit of RP things in the past. I just never really put two and two together that I would like D&D. It was never a game that anyone around me played. The closest thing I played to D&D was actually Magic the Gathering when I was in junior high, and that was kind of a short-lived stint. It was like literally junior high, like 1 to 2 years, and then that was it. So I was kind of doing some soul searching as like content from a content creator perspective, and really just wanted to try new things. And so many of people that I know play D&D or have been trying to get me into D&D for years. They're like, you'd be great in D&D. You should totally be in my game. And I'm like, yeah, I got to stream. I'm sorry. I got to get a stream. Right? I guess because I didn't know what I was in for. And so luckily we had my friend CJ put together a little short campaign for us. We played a couple sessions and now I'm hooked. This is essentially what happened. So it's really just, is a wanting to do something new. And I think why I enjoy D&D so much now is, especially as a dungeon master, being able to be a part of an emergent narrative that also is in and of itself a game is really neat. And it's even more neat when you kind of get to direct that, but don't have direct control over it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's super cool being like, I'm the puppet master, and then they're like cutting the strings, and I'm like, oh god, I don't know what's happening anymore. What is happening?
Neverwinter?
Yeah, it's so great. Yeah, Neverwinter. Let's go to Neverwinter. You mean that place that I didn't prepare for and didn't even see on the map that I gave you? Oh crap. I mean, it's fun. I just push it back on you guys and we get through. But yeah, so that's really the kind of the fun, I guess, for me of D&D.
I'm already learning new stuff. I didn't know cosplaying rights. I didn't know that.
That is a fun tidbit. That is how me and Faded met.
Oh,
Really?
Through role playing.
See,
We
I
met
didn't
and we
know
became
that.
friends for a long, long time until we started dating.
Well, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna take
That's
the next.
also why it holds a special place in Carrie's heart.
Oh, see, I like again. Who knew? This is what's fun. All right. Next question was from Zelda's twin. What's the most challenging thing about creating your characters? And we'll say limit this specifically to Leif Istiria.
Yeah.
And we'll start with Istiria.
Trying to make it different than the last. Like, I don't like to be that kind of person that makes the same kind of character all the time. I like them to have different personalities, different races, different things that they do, things they enjoy, because it makes it more interesting, at least to me as a player.
Leif?
The hardest part about making Leif, he is super bubbly and super curious, and I don't feel like at times I'm doing that justice. The hardest part for me in creating the character is the ongoing development of the character story for me. Making it, I always feel like I'm creating the character as we play, but I think that's been the hardest part, is just kind of meeting the expectations of what Leif's character is, and sometimes feeling like I'm kind of going a little short. I do think that the most recent session we had is getting closer.
Yeah, I agree. I think Leif's character is definitely gaining more and more depth as that character experiences more throughout the game. Though I'm gonna be real honest, Istiria remains the enigma to me of the group. Like, Godorok is really simple in terms of his portrayal of himself, right? He's very much like quiet, reserved, but also is like, I'm just gonna go up and hit stuff when it's time to hit stuff. When I don't want to hit stuff, I don't want to hit stuff, and when I'm hungry, it's time to eat. But Istiria is like, you're like this interesting kind of like on the outside but not on the outside, but then really assertive at times. And I love when that side comes out, but then it's super hot or cold. So it's like you're either right in there and you're like, hey, we're doing this, murder bear, and we're like, okay, or you're like,
I mean, from Isteria's perspective, she's not from this plane. She's observing and she's trying to learn, and as she observes more and learns more, she's becoming more comfortable.
But the things that I guess the question I want to know is with Istiria. Istiria has been on this plane for 10 years with Ashin. So is it just that you guys have had limited exposure to the rest of the world, and like this is kind of your first foray into it? Or is there, what's the deal there, I guess? It's not like you haven't been here for a while, I guess is what I'm saying.
I mean, with our story, she found him, saved him, and then they just stayed on the outskirts. They would go into towns when they needed to because he was hunting for this thing, and she was willing to help him. Also, when trying to question people about anything that she could get her hands on, like, how did I get here? I don't know.
Yeah, it's got to be rough, right? Everybody's like, so where are you from? The Fae. How'd you get here? I don't know.
Magic.
A shiny thing. I traveled through it.
So, on that thread, why the Fae? Why choose the Eladrin and be from the Feywild?
Because I like the Fae. That was pretty simple.
Yeah, no, it's fair.
No, it's totally fair. I'm just, what about the Fae like draws you in? Is it just like the whole concept of like fairies and whimsy, or what is it?
I think it's more the concept of fairies. I've always been attracted to like the Celtic mythos of fairies and how they exist in the world and they don't exist in the world. They're enigmatic and elusive.
Hmm. That is somewhat Istiria right now. Truth. So Leif, to grind your gears a little bit,
Sure.
why a changeling? Why be this amorphous being?
This actually gets a little personal, but
Ooh.
I love the concept of shapeshifters and changelings. Like, it's definitely for D&D characters, changeling easily in my top 5 of favorite characters that I ever want to play. That's why like my very first character was in Pathfinder, a changeling. Um, to not get super personal, but a little bit, changelings can, as a massive expression, kind of be whoever they want to be,
Hmm.
and they can change in kind of who they are. That's just really appealing to me, just because I've always had some issues with not feeling super comfortable with like growing up, like people saying things like, "Oh, I think you're attractive," and I'm just like, I don't think so in the slightest. And just like body image stuff and things like that, I've always had a lot of issue with it. So it's just always been a really appealing thing, like being able to not be like your perfect self, but be what you'd feel comfortable with.
Right. She's like, hey, I don't like something about myself. Change.
Yeah, and changelings definitely do that whole, like they have like one true like mask, like Leif's human form, which you see on like his little token.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like what he always looks like. And then he will change to be a banshee or whatever to for fun. But he'll always revert to that one, and then he always has to have amber eyes because his eyes for his human one are amber. And he likes to carry that over to any other form unless he has to match it exactly.
Mm,
Mhm.
that's neat. So you both have ties to some deities of sorts. So Asteria, when you were going through your character creation of your Eladrin, and I know you took what is it, the summer court, right?
Spring.
Spring court.
Mhm.
So why everything with Sehanine? Where's the tie in there? Is that more of a character tie in, or was there some special kind of, was it just like, hey, this is OP, or this is what I had to pick,
It
or
was more the character tie-in
mhm.
because, without saying too much to reveal backstory stuff, there's stuff there. um, she's a druid of the moon, and she's the moon deity of the Fae. So it seemed like the easiest choice
Sure.
in the character creation.
It definitely makes me think more now that we're having this conversation that you and I actually probably need to have a little bit more behind the scenes talk about the relationship between you and Sehanine, because I kind of have been playing Sehanine as like this very motherly deity where she's kind of looking after all of her, you know, all of her charges or her people, so to
Mhm.
speak, in a very maternal, you know, matriarchal kind of way. But at the same time, I don't necessarily know if that's the type of relationship that we want to have. So I don't know. We'll have to talk through that and find that
Mhm.
out. Now, Leif,
I
you made you made a pact with the warlock deity.
did.
Why'd you do such a thing as a sorcerer?
Couple of reasons. I'll go over the reason that actually is primary, just above the secondary reason. The primary reason was for you. I thought you, as a DM, could really flourish playing a character that was like a patron. I
Mm,
didn't know about Sahani before this,
okay.
so I thought you having this kind of like character that you could, as you've been doing, throwing in at random times to either progress a plot point with the main plot or to have fun with Trivia Murder Party. Um, I just thought it'd be a really good exercise for you as a DM. And the secondary reason was because Hexblades is what I took, and Hexblades hail from the Shadowfell. And I'm already a shadow magic sorcerer, where the Shadowfell's where Leif got his powers.
Mm.
And also, I restricted myself quite a bit for a sorcerer, not being able to cast fire magics, which I kind of like, and some other things, so I didn't take them. And taking a point in the Hexblade very early, with you and I had agreed to break the pact before we started sessions,
Right.
would let me be more viable early, like as shown with me stabbing things in darkness, or being able to use the Hexblade weapon to assassinate someone. More versatile for those first 3 or 4 levels before I break the pact, and then can be a pure sorcerer where I actually start to pick up in power.
Right.
Mhm.
But then we kind of hit a kind of a changing point, right?
Mhm.
Where you kind of hit level 5 and went into level 6, and we had talked about how, like, oops, like this has kind of become a detriment now from a character development point in terms of your ability to progress through being a sorcerer with only having this one class. So how do you feel about the direction that we've taken with Leif's character, with now him retaining the patron, but now you seem to be able to do more standard sorcery things?
I personally like it. I think I wasn't expecting to keep a patron during this, so it's kind of a weird flavor of having the Shadowfell sorcerer have a patron from the Shadowfell, yet not be a warlock.
He's my
Just
droop. What do you want from me?
That's fine. That's perfectly fine. I'm glad that you're enjoying it. Um, I think it's going to offer a lot more opportunities for you as a DM, and also our party, and also Leif, to kind of grow as a character.
So
So I'm happy with the direction.
what does Leif think of this relationship right now?
Um, Obviously went from kind of like blind trusting curiosity, like, well, you're from the Shadowfell and you're coming to me. I assume you need help. Yeah, sure. This could be fun. To gets a little aggressive at times, and after having some other experiences with other enemies, a little wary now. He's never lied to Leif, but he's never given either the whole truth, or it's always very vague on his end goal for Leif, and that makes him wary.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's fun. So, Asteria, from your perspective, how are you feeling about kind of your how does Asteria feel about being kind of stuck here? Because you had a really interesting moment with Sehanine in the last session, where, or was the one before, right? 2 sessions
The
ago,
one
like right at the
before.
end, 2 sessions ago. Like you had this interesting moment where Sehanine was like, "Hey, come back." Right? Like there's remedies here. You can come back. And you were like, I can't come back. I feel like I'm needed here. How does that translate to Asteria? Like, break that down for me. How does Asteria feel about this current, like, state that she's in right now?
Well, when she left the Feywild, she was coming in, she had just finished her druid training. She was going out on her own. She has bad ties with her family.
Mm.
More specifics, I plan on giving you a little later.
It's fine.
But so in coming to this world, she found a companion in Ashin and saw things that needed to grow that she could help fight for. And the further away from her family, the better in her eyes.
That definitely adds a new dimension to kind of her willingness to do a lot of this stuff, because I feel like there's a lot of times where even I'm like, why don't you just like go home if you want to go home? Like, you've been here with Anshin for 10 years. Like, okay, you obviously want to be here, but
Of
like,
course, there's people and there's ties that she has in the Feywild that she's always concerned about.
sure.
But as far as she can see, she's more of use here helping the party attain their goals than just running back home.
So I'm gonna interject a question here from Smug. Smug Tater, for everyone, when role playing the character through a tough moral choice, do you try to act it out as you would IRL or play it out in character more often?
I would my personal goals and my character's goals are different.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I have children to take care of. Isteria does not have children to take care of. So, her choices are different. So, I try to approach them as how my character would act. How does she feel about the situation?
Yeah, and for me, I always try to stick to the character as much as possible. There have been many times in the sessions where maybe not a tough moral choice, but I obviously know I should not be doing this thing or this X thing. But I know Leif doesn't know that. So
You mean like making
definitely.
bargains?
Wandering off on your own?
Look, there's a question from Zelda first off. I'm looking forward to answer later. And just saying.
Oh, I bet.
Like, yep.
See, I think there's definitely, being from the DM side, when you have to control these NPCs, I think one of the cool parts about being a DM is that I never know how an NPC is going to act until they act. At least right now. Like, I have a general understanding of a motivation of an NPC, but there's been lots of moments where I don't ever know what's going to come out of my mouth until it happens. And I mean that. Like the Sahanine moments, I know that Istiria's reaching out and I need to say something, right? And we're going to have a conversation where we know of remedies that exist in the Fae, but I don't. And like all the other flavor that comes out just literally just pours out of nowhere, right? It's pure imagination that just pours out. Same thing with, the patron stuff. That the whole like giving you this potion thing, right? Like I'm like, I don't know what to do with this potion. And like all of a sudden my head's like, well, what if this ethereal hand like had a vial and we could just like pop the cork and pour some in your mouth, right? It sounds cool in my head as I'm literally saying it out of my mouth at the same time, but I'm not planning that. So I think 100% of that is all, what these characters' motivation is. Though in the times that I had to, when I was playing Alivor in the kind of one shot that we were doing, which kind of started my whole thing, I definitely found it hard my first time around in trying to separate my internal moral compass to what Alivor's moral compass would be. And that was a really interesting thought experiment as to looking at what these alignments mean, looking at what the nature of these races are, and how all that kind of stuff plays into it. For you guys, do you just create a character, or do you give credence to those types of considerations? Like, do you look up the character or the race of your character and other things to try and like delve out character traits, or do you just kind of say, hey, I have a character trait and I'm just going to be this kind of a race and class and et cetera, et cetera?
So I personally, I do take that into account always. Like obviously if you're like a Warforged, probably a lot of people are gonna hate you because they probably don't think you have a soul. I've never played a Warforged, but I'm just going off of like lore of them. And with a lot of different characters. I mean,
Yeah.
you can see a lot of really prevalent points in their culture that shapes a lot of how they are. Me personally, though, I take that into consideration. It helps me form a character, but at the end of the day, I don't think that you have to be beholden to what that exactly says. Like as I mentioned before, I was inside of this, like Yuan Ti, they're always evil aligned. You don't have to always have an evil Yuan Ti. You
Right.
can always have that one-off thing.
Stereo, what about you? Or Cause, what about you? I call you, I'm so used to calling you guys stuff in game, it's hard to separate the two sometimes.
I tend to research the races a bit while I'm thinking of character traits. Like, okay, well, this character comes from here. They are this. What would make them interesting? What can I add or take away that would give a personality trait or even a personality flaw?
Do you use the guides in the books?
I'll look at the guides and then I'll also look at other stuff. Like,
no. No.
I
I
don't.
don't use any of this crap.
I mean, I use for Leif the Shadowfell quirks, but
Okay.
that's different. I don't use like the ideals, flaws, bonds. I mean, I'm going to give the characters ideals, flaws, bonds anyway.
Hmm.
So those are already in my head for the character. Those really don't help or hurt me. So I just don't look at them.
Cause, where do you find that other inspiration? You said sometimes outside. Where do you find that? Like just
land of
books?
Google.
The land of Google?
Land of Google.
That's
a good
fair.
land.
The internet machine?
Heard there's a lot of elves there.
Yeah, there's lots of elves in the Googles.
So we're going to go back to another question from Zelda. Has anything turned out completely different than you anticipated? And was it because of an unexpected action or reaction from another player character?
I'll let Cause answer this first.
Like in this campaign or overall?
Yeah, I'd say in this campaign. Let's try. For this one, we'll keep it specific to this campaign.
Okay. What was the question again? I'm trying to think.
Has anything turned out completely different than you anticipated? And was it because of an unexpected action or reaction from another player character?
We made it to level 5 without a cleric.
Are you serious? Like that?
Yeah.
You're that concerned about it?
Yeah. Have you seen our barbarian?
What? You guys
What's in here?
So it's so funny because from my perspective, you guys mop the floor with everything. Like you've gone down a couple times, sure, but it's never been like, and the only person left alive is your weakest party member that doesn't have any healing, right? Like,
I mean, I think that way because in D&D, in role-playing games, in any game I play, I'm normally the support person.
Okay.
So, as a shape-shifting druid, I'm kind of the support person, but not really.
Murder bear.
Murder bear?
Murder bear is certainly not a support person. Murder bear is definitely like up there.
So I'm
with
like,
the bard.
man, we lived. Yay!
That's so shocking to me. Like, have you seen you guys play? Like, your stealth is typically really, really effective, and I think the way that you play, the way you guys play as a party is really smart. I'll just put that out there. You definitely don't play. You play like a group of experienced adventurers, right? Like you understand to a certain extent that stealth is going to be your ally. You don't have anyone that is capable of incredible healing. There's multiple of you that have like cure wounds, right? But you don't have that like revivify. Like it's not you don't have that. You don't have, like I said, you don't have a cleric. You don't have someone that can do that. So you guys tend to play that really, really well, though. In my opinion, I don't know. It's just me. All right, you've had enough time, Gage. What's your moment?
The most prominent one is the encounter with Venom Thing.
Ooh.
And Leif's head and everything else too. Like that entire just area, Thunder Tree, went way different in Leif's how he thought it was going to go. And then he gets to Venom Fame, and it went how he was expecting and hopeful that's what he wanted it to go. And then the unexpected actions and reactions from 3 of my 4 companions made it into an actual encounter. And the dragon, which he was actually very genuinely sincere in his offers and his comments to her.
Oh, you're saying to her? Yes, to her. Okay, yeah, to the dragon. Okay.
Is now her hating him, and it's just how it happened. Leif's like, we need to go, and there are 2 elves and a half elf are like, but dragon, we can't. And then one of them, Istiria, was finally like, okay, well, let's go talk to Rydoth. But then we just stayed too long, and then we ended up fighting the dragon.
Yeah, we'll have to see if green dragons hold a grudge. But I would say, has anything turned out completely different than you anticipated? That's such a weird question for a DM because everything turns out different than I anticipate. The dragon fight was definitely one. I was terrified. I was terrified of the dragon fight because literally I had all of you guys in one building, and had initiative gone the way of the dragon, it would have been breath attack right on all of you. And I even say it in the vlog, I was building in one contingency for it to give you guys time to get out of that building, and then it was all bets are off, right? Like, just whatever happens. Because I didn't want to TPK you with a breath attack, and then that just didn't seem right. But you guys certainly got yourself in that situation on your own. So,
well, I mean, I said it after the episode. Like, she's a druid from the Feywild. She sees this creature is corrupting the land.
Right.
The thing she's supposed to be helping to save, she can't just walk away.
But you stayed in a little house right next to the dragon.
Yeah. I didn't know it was there.
And Leif's thought process was definitely like, we can't deal with this here.
Right. That definitely went differently than I expected. The Red Brand encounter at the outside of Neverwinter, that went really different than I expected it going. The other encounter in Thunder Tree where you guys took out the cultists, I should say Ashin and Bamir took out the cultists. Like that, I didn't think that was going to go that way. I legitimately had thought that I had given you guys enough cues to feel like these cultists were not threatening to you, for you to not go attack them. And I know you two didn't, but still, that was probably the biggest one where I was like, they were polite. They were polite to you. They were like, hey, that's really nice of you, but we're kind of doing stuff in here. Thanks. And you're just like, kill with shatter. And I was like, oh God, bad things are about to happen.
Murder bearing the door was more like, oh shit, this is going down, huh? Okay, let's go.
That was awesome, by the way.
Leif grappled and intimidated them, which they were, like, their charisma save was like -14 at that point, so it didn't matter. Like, oh, they're very scared.
So yeah, they were definitely needing underwear changes for sure. But yeah, I think that was something definitely different than anticipated. I think the whole campaign experience has gone different than I anticipated in a really good way. I feel like whereas the first session or two for me being super new was kind of rough around the edges, but we kind of got through it. I feel like we went from 0 to 60 real fast. And I feel like our sessions improved in terms of like RP and I know that we were a new group of people playing together, although most of us have known each other for a little while. Like the quickness of how we gelled and have been able to do things and to RP together and that kind of stuff has been way different than what I thought it was going to be. So I've been super happy. Voxy asks, how many dragons will you slay or befriend? It's a very, we don't have crystal balls, but
I mean,
Istiria like to answer that one?
It depends what kind of dragons they are.
I assume Leif wants to befriend 2 of them. One is going to be a lot more difficult than the other one now.
oh,
But most likely, like, not answering his Leif, probably 1 or 2.
kill or
1 or 2.
befriend?
Being slayed.
Oh, being slayed.
But Leif would like to befriend them.
Leif's like, they're dragons. They're cool looking. They're probably really old, powerful. We could ride them.
All the knowledge.
All the knowledge. That's a different topic because dragons are super smart. All right, and then we'll go to another fun one. How quickly did you realize the Droop was going to become a permanent fixture in the campaign? Are you happy about? Oh, so I'm gonna let. There's more to this question, but I'm gonna leave that for you. So, how quickly did you guys realize Droop was going to be part of this campaign?
The moment Istiria shoved her face under the bed.
And it's funny because Droop has forgotten that. When he started following Ashin around.
Really?
Yeah.
Like when they were walking through the place after you cleared it out.
Yeah. Had a feeling.
Yeah. See, when Asteria shoved her little wolf face into under the bed and was like being like a curious dog to the little scared goblin, I'm like, oh no, we're going to adopt him. And we did.
That was news to me. I didn't realize it until you guys were definitely like, "You're coming with us, Droop," and it's like, "Oh, okay."
You gave him such a pity party.
I did because I just didn't want you to kill him because he has information for you.
Yes, but you went from pity party to the point of, well, can't leave him here and be sad.
He's a poor, pathetic goblin. They were literally like, and so funny,
Yep.
funny of all the funnies. That all of that is direction given in the actual module. They're like, Droop is a sad, pathetic little creature that is being abused by the bugbears. So I'm like, he's like, if you're nice to him, he will want to help you. I think that I just played that to the T, and you guys are like, come with us, and I was like, oh, okay, guess we're doing this.
She was about to take a bite out of whatever was under there.
Like,
But
oh.
then there was the whole hook of he's been abused, and she's
Mhm.
like, oh no, okay, fine, I'm sorry.
Droop saw Asteria poop his pants. Sorry. It's funny. All right, so the rest of the question was, as a DM, am I happy about Droop being part of it, like the rest of the cast, that he's actually still there? And the answer is yes. I think having Droop as part of the campaign has been great. Now, behind all the scenes, right, we had talked about Droop becoming part of the party a lot. We talked about him being a paladin and having some kind of moment where he kind of comes into some kind of power. And the more that we played through the campaign, the more it just seems fitting for Droop to not be that way, which is why we're kind of setting him up to stay with Toblin in the tavern and kind of become a fixture there so that we can come back and it's like, oh, hey, everybody, you're back. Tell me about your adventure, right? Like that kind of a character, as opposed to me being, Droop the mighty and doing all kinds of crazy things as this little goblin, right? It maybe somewhere down the future he gets blessed and that's a fun story arc or something. But like, I don't know. I certainly happy he's still there. He adds so much flavor to the RP. I think it brings out cool moments in all of you players in terms of how you handle him. Like the moment when Droop and Asteria are in the tent, you're getting attacked by spiders, right? Like you're like, ah, right? Like we are gonna be friends, huddle together, right? And like him and Leif were like holding down a spider outside the frickin' the temple, the dwarven temple, when you guys are facing the black spider. So like there's little moments where you guys kind of have these little plays, or Asteria taking Droop upstairs and putting him in his bed, right? Like those things. It's just nice. I think it's super. I think he adds the super cute element, but also this is interestingly human element for or humane element for like Ashin, who hates goblins and is now really taken to Droop as like this unfortunate little goblin son, right? Like he's like adopted him literally. So it's a really neat piece of character development. So the next question goes back to Zelda. Zelda asks, now that we've finished the story arc, do we feel like we've learned anything new about D&D? That's a loaded question. That's a super loaded question.
It is.
And I'm going to let you guys go first while I check Twitter for any more additional questions.
Thanks, host. Cause, you like to answer that first? You want me to?
Nope, you can go first because I don't know.
So after finishing Lost Mines of Phandelver, what have I learned anything new about D&D? Quite a bit. It definitely helps you solidify how the game's played in the rules. Being able to basically this be my first complete session or campaign, that's just been really helpful. Like learning things as we go, kind of thing, and not getting too bogged down with rule lawyering as much as sometimes it's cool, so let's just do the thing. The main thing though that I think I've kind of already known, but I think it's was a good learning experience was seeing our DM grow as a DM
Oh,
and how important that is for a campaign and for your players is to have a DM that's willing to get better and to improve. But on the reverse side of that, also as players, how can we be better for our DMs? How can we bring out those moments to help one their story shine, but also to help our other players in the campaign have good story moments or help. I mean, at the end of the day, we're not just one person going through, we're an entire party of people,
right.
and all of our stories are equally as important.
Yeah, I think it's been interesting. Obviously, being a first time DM, I'm basically learning how to DM. So I have learned how to DM, and that's a constant work in progress. I think one of the bigger things that I've learned about D&D in general is its potential, right? I like the potential for storytelling, the flexibility of it. When I was brand new and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna run a module because I'm gonna play it safe. Running a module is not playing it safe, by the way. Running a module is insanity because you immediately feel like you have to know everything about the module. At least that's how I took it. I was like, all right, I need to learn this thing front to back. I need to know all the rules. I need to do this. And it's like, no, it's too much. Like little chunks, and we'll get better each time. Like I still remember we did a mock combat the night before the first session, and I messed it up so bad. I was like, I'm so happy we did this because I was lost. I was like, God, roll initiative. Okay. Oh, and the monsters have to have initiative too. Oh, okay, I'll put that in there. Like it was that bad. They're like, how far are you guys away? I'm like, I don't know.
Oh god, yeah, I had
Uh,
asked you for distances, and you're like,
I was
I
like,
don't
they were
know.
just over there. What do you mean? How far are they away? I was so
My spell
lost.
only goes so far.
Yeah, you're like, but like everything has range. Night, you have to know this. And I'm like, oh, okay. And that, but again, that was super helpful.
Yep.
It kind of, again, these are all the things that you don't think about. So now I'm worrying about how to make more stories and how to do more with stories. And when I look at modules now, I think the fun part about looking at a module or some kind of pre-written content is looking at it as a concept and not as a gospel. So real quick, I took Lost Mine of Phandelver and said, we're going to flavor this our way to make it fun for us, which is what you're supposed to do in D&D. And I think that was one of the biggest takeaways that I had as a DM is that you don't have to run things by a book. There's no right way to tell the story. It's your story. You can do whatever you want. So it's fun. Cause, what about you?
I don't know.
You're like,
That's a
I've
hard
done
question.
this so many times already.
I've played and written stories and a lot over the years. Learning a lot about this new edition because I've never played 5th edition and seeing how all the things have changed and grown that in that respect.
What about the Theros one shot? Did you enjoy that?
I did. I mean, I like mythology in general, so that one's really cool to me.
Make a wisdom save.
Other than
wisdom
not being
save.
able to hit the thing flying in the air.
Yeah.
That was annoying.
Trust me. I know. I wanted to
Sorry.
hit the thing flying in the air too.
And when you finally did, I just used my reaction to take the damage myself.
And I was like, what is this wizardry? Damn this.
That wizardry paladin.
I know. See, I think that was the one shot that we did for Theros. I legitimately was trying to kill you as in that final encounter because I knew it didn't matter. Right?
Sorry.
Like, and it would be more fun if we had someone that died. But no. No, it was just like, we're OP level 13. And I'm like, God, you're this OP at level 13? What is it like to play at level 20? Are you just gods at that point?
That's the point. You're basically like demigods at level 20. Can we ask you a question?
Sure.
So we haven't had this happen, but how do you think you would handle or our party would handle a character death?
Oh, I think about that a lot, actually. Not
Mhm.
as a hey, we should have somebody die, but
Yeah.
we had talks around Spoiler alert, we had talks around doing a second show at some point. I've said that kind of openly, but still. Talks about doing a second show and what would happen if we needed certain people's schedules to maneuver, and would that lead to a player death, and how would we fill that hole and stuff. And that's something where I still, as a DM, I think it's a fairly regular thing in the game for a lot of people, is just to die and reroll a character. Because we're so RP heavy, I feel like the loss of any of our characters, even at this point, is emotionally devastating. Even if I know it's coming, or even if it was planned, it would still be like, oh no, like not even like a, hey, they're just gonna go off and do their own thing in the story, but like an actual death would be pretty gut wrenching. I'm not gonna lie to you. It would hurt. It would hurt a lot. Like even Droop, right? Like I thought a couple times, one or two episodes out, like, why don't I just kill Droop? And then I was like, I can't kill Droop. Killing Droop would be like killing a baby. Like I would feel the most horrible person ever for killing Droop. So it's hard. It would be really, really hard to say goodbye to any of these characters and re-roll them. I like the possibilities of being able to bring somebody new in and what that looks like from a narrative. So it's like, oh, like that's cool. Like we have some new kind of dynamic, and then they got to fit in with the group and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'd be sad. What about you guys? Have you contemplated your own characters' deaths? Is that just a normal thing for you?
If Istiria died,
Oh gosh, yeah.
there might be a couple people that would probably be very upset. Like, obviously, Asheen, Godric's kind of close. They have like this fighting bond. Like, they go and kill things together. And Istiria and Leif have had several,
Yep.
side conversations about stuff because he's from a similar area than that she is. Completely different, but not the same plane.
Material planes are all the same. They're just different flavor.
So I'm like, oh man, well, how? That would be some rough RP.
Yeah. What about you, Gage?
So, Leif's. I always think about that. Like, what would it be like if a character died?
Sure.
I feel like it kind of depends on the death. I don't really think about like specifically for Leif, but just any character that I would make. What would their death be like? Would that be RP'd? Would it just be quick and painless? Like, it kind of just depends. Like, if it's you don't get aren't there certain things in D&D where you don't get death saves? They just flat out kill you. I know like things like disintegrate do, but like stuff like that, is it just gonna be like, and you're gone in a flash, and it's just like a sudden shock, or is it like you basically bled out in someone's arms and had like an RP moment? And I feel like depending on the players and the characters, it has different emotional effects on both.
Yeah, I think there's a difference too. Again, I think there's probably, when I go through my head, like how would that happen? What does that look like? I think there's it's an interesting concept, because as a DM, you kind of want things to happen that are unexpected, right? Like per se. Let's say somewhere down the road in the narrative, someone's mad that you killed the black spider, so they're gonna send an assassin after you, right? And that assassin rolls well enough to just end you outright. What does that look like? You know what I mean? Like, what does that look like? As a DM, do I tell you it's coming? Because then you know it's coming, right? Because if it's a serious possibility, you need to have something as a backup. How do you communicate that? Like, all of those types of things around player death are very hard to think about. Definitely hard to think about. I don't know. So there's a fun question, since we got all of the fun deep conversation going there. This one was actually not for either of you, but we're going to talk about it anyway. This one is actually from Nightmare, and it was originally for Godoruk. And it says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how food motivated do you think you are? And for everyone else, give your opinion of how food motivated he is. So we'll just do the how food motivated is Godoruk.
Scale 1 to 10?
On a scale of 1 to 10.
20.
7.
20.
Dang.
He's always looking for food.
Roadkill for cinnamon rolls.
We'll
Yeah,
stop. We'll make a pit stop. Okay, we're gonna take a short rest. Goes hunting for a rabbit.
yeah, I'd say like
Like,
a solid
okay.
7.
Well, as far as like Isteria goes, she's on survival. Like, she'll go and get what she needs for the rest of the day or whatever, and she's good.
Could Godorok mentally survive off good berries? I don't think he could.
Probably not.
One good berry, that's all you get. Oh no.
Well, I mean, he literally went into the tavern and Neverwinter was like, "Give me all the meat you got." Like, if everybody spends money on different things, right? Godorok thus far has been the most likely to spend copious amounts of money on food, and I think it's great.
Followed by weapons.
I mean, weapons too, certainly, but in terms of food, I mean, it's like literally when you chuck down what is it, like 3 to 5 gold pieces, and it was like, "Give me all the meat you have." It's like, bring out all the meats, okay, right? Literally, here's all the meats that we have. I think that was hilarious. That was just total tropey too for me. Just like, well, the orc wants to eat all the meat, fine, let's get her going. So I think Godorok is very food motivated. Although I think we're seeing some shimmers of more character depth out of Godorok, especially through the last part of the campaign, where he definitely took on more of a almost like a shieldy defensive role, not just because he was trying to go in and hit all the things, but also there seemed to be like a concern there at some point for other, for the other characters and making sure everybody was okay. And I thought that was really cool, of the kind of dimension of the character. All right, so we got a question in chat from Geigen. Just because you're curious, for D&D style games, what's your favorite one of all time, and what makes you gravitate towards that one? Is it just because it's setting, for example, like fantasy or sci-fi, or something else?
Aside from D&D, I rather like Werewolf the Apocalypse. Not the the Apocalypse. Because of the whole, it's not your typical, fun tabletop game. It's very dark and gritty.
That's a weird question for me. I haven't really, I feel like, played a lot of like D&D style games overall. Like I played like fantasy or sci-fi games, but nothing that's like, I've never played like Dungeons and Dragons Online, or I mean the closest thing I can think of is like Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, because it had the same stat system in a sense.
Sure.
But like I honestly never really got to play MMOs. The only MMOs I've ever played was the beta for Phantasy Star Universe, or Online, whichever one. Back on like the original, like the Xbox 360 or Xbox One, or Xbox 360. And then since that, the only MMO I played is Black Desert Online. That's about it. I mean, it's still not really D&D like.
I've played so many MMOs.
I know you have. I like MMOs. I just could never do the whole pay per month thing, so I just never did.
So it's an interesting question, because some of my favorite I think all my favorite RPGs in general are a good mix between fantasy and sci-fi, but I heavily invested first in sci-fi, or excuse me, in fantasy when it came to this whole tabletop experience, because I think fantasy in general has such a lure to me. And I have been recently engaging in more consumption of content that is still fantasy but is modern day. So I've been getting that different perspective. Like, I mean, everybody knows like Harry Potter, right? So you got like magic and all kinds of fun stuff in modern day, but also a show called The Order, which is very modern day. The Magicians, right? Like that kind of fantasy where it's not, hey, we're elves in a forest fantasy, but there's still magic and mysticism and fun kind of things going on. I like the fact that you can apply it in so many different areas. But I grew up watching Hercules with Kevin Sorbo and Xena and geez, every fantasy movie that I could get my hands on, from like the old school movie Dragon Slayer with the guy that played Janusz Poha from Ghostbusters 2. He's in that. Holy Grail. I love dragon movies. So what is it? Like Dragonheart was phenomenal. Aragon was a piece of trash, but the dragon looked cool.
We won't get into that.
What was the movie with frickin' what's his name? Was it Matthew McConaughey and Christian Bale? It was the dragon movie.
Reign of Fire.
Reign of Fire. That's such a good movie. Such a good movie. But like I love fantasy movies, and even horrible fantasy movies. I love, and I can just watch. Anything like King Arthur related, I could watch. Like all these kinds of things. Like fantasy just kind of is where you can just do anything, and magic, right? Where sci-fi, I mean, Mass Effect is one of my top 5 games of all time in terms of the series and the saga. And I used to watch Star Trek, Next Generations and Deep Space Nine and Star Wars and all those kinds of things too. So there's that healthy balance, I think, between both. But I'm certainly having a lot of fun in the fantasy realm right now. We'll have to see.
With that, you should check out Cursed on Netflix.
I already did. It was great.
You did? Okay.
It was
It
great.
gives a very interesting spin on the old tired tale of
King Arthur. Yes.
I
liked
liked
it very much.
I was like, give me more. Of course, there's fairies, and I love fae things. So, I'm like, give me more now.
That
right now.
and like Carnival Row on Amazon Prime is good as well. It's another cool show to watch that's more recent. Faded says the Aragon books are good though. I will say the first 3 Aragon books are good, and the 4th one is decent up until the very end. And I hate the ending of Aragon.
There's a lot of unanswered questions in that series too.
I never read those books, and I only watched the one movie, so I was never invested in that one, I guess.
The problem for me was that the author sets up a villain that is literally so powerful that there's no way that the main protagonist can win.
The plot armor.
Except for plot armor.
He gets a +10 to AC.
It's literally it. It's dumb. That said, Geigen, to tickle your fancy, the second game that I want to start up, I'm seriously looking for different systems, evaluating different systems to make it more of a kind of Treasure Planet style space piratey kind of adventure. So definitely more on that sci-fi side of life. So fun. But anyway,
I actually did play Firefly campaign once. That was lots of fun.
Oh, Firefly's so good.
By the way, it was so much fun.
Firefly's so good. That said, that is pretty much all the time that we have for today. So I'm going to go ahead and say thank you to Gage and Cospain for being here and for being part of the original or the initial session, the initial show of Dungeon Talks. Guys, you can catch us here every Wednesday night right around 11 p.m. Eastern, where we're going to have members of the cast of Dungeon Nytes on talking about the previous session and answer any of the questions that you have. And so we'll see you guys next time. Love your faces, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.